And welcome back. As you all know, we are going to go into Was It Worth It? And with today's level, we have a brand new game, The Medium. Now, I have not played it, but the other two have. So that is why I am being the leader right now. We're going to go in with visuals first, guys. How are the visuals to you?
So I will say, I think I find it interesting that Cory and I are reviewing a horror game.
Yeah,
I
not
think it's
happy about it.
I would
very
have a very
poetic.
biased review. We need some bold takes.
Okay.
Some fresh eyes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see, Cory, you want to give your opinion on the visuals first? You want me to take it?
Yeah, okay. Speaking of fresh eyes, I thought this game looked pretty good. Not outstanding. It's like touted as like the first exclusive for Series X and S. You would hope that it would be groundbreaking in terms of visuals, kind of like Rise was with the Xbox One. But for me, I thought it looked pretty good. Now the graphical style is mostly realistic, but as you know, if you looked at this game, it has like split worlds, and the other world's kind of like, what would you call that? Like a demon world?
Yeah. Yes,
I, I
the spirit world. Yeah.
I thought it was mostly bland. It mostly had like an orange hue the entire time, and it kind of looked decrepit, but not visually like something I would be focusing on. Most of the time, I was looking at the real world aspect when they did those splits. But graphics, for the most part, pretty good.
So visuals for me, this is interesting because we've talked some, but we haven't really dove into each other's opinions on things.
Right, right.
So the visuals for it, the spirit world, is heavily influenced by this Polish artist named Zdzisław Bakinski, I believe is his name. And it's kind of like this really hauntingly macabre, but kind of soft, seeking kind of beautiful type of art. And I think with that being the game's inspiration, they do that kind of art style justice. I thought the game looked really, really good, as far as just its fidelity. And I think as far as what you got with the camera angles, how it showed everything. I think we mentioned this game has fixed camera angles, so
Right.
very much like classic, throwing it back to like the old RE games. So it has that. So and they're able to kind of on their own set up these angles in the game that I think give the most beautiful or most complimenting visual shots of where you're at in different areas and different scenes like that. So overall, I thought that the game looked really, really good, and I really, really dug the atmosphere they kind of created with it as well. So
Okay. And you said that the whole artist thing that was for the spirit world.
yeah,
So the spirit world and the real world had different kind of art. Did that mesh well?
it will. I think it did what their intention was, which is to have a stark contrast
Yeah, it
as far
wasn't
as
meant
color
to.
palette and everything like that.
Right. Okay. I probably said the wrong word, but that is okay. That's good.
I,
Okay.
I don't know, Jeremy. I found the spirit world just kind of boring. From room to room and area to area, it looked really the same to me. Each different room, it had all those like big blobs coming off, and that's kind of all it was to me the entire game, pretty much. Some areas did it a little better, but for me, the spirit world kind of let me down.
Yeah, I can see that it gets to a point where when you're navigating, I think in either realms, it eventually gets samey, right?
Right.
There's not a lot of real good divisions in the visuals in regards to something being or looking and feeling different. There are some instances, but that usually happens when your character changes, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Okay.
All right. So next category we have the sound of the game and the music in the game. How are those?
Um,
Go
I,
ahead,
I'll
Jeremy.
I'll go first really quick. So I don't really have a lot to say with the music. It's there. The composer of it is the composer of the Silent Hill games. He did the music for it. But I think he made it to just be really subtle and really, really, really kind of in the background. So there's not really much that's noteworthy about it. The voice acting is fine. I think the worst voice acting is with the protagonist, which we can also get into. I think there's a lot of elements in the game where the worst parts of it is with the protagonist, which is very confusing. But overall, yeah, sound and music is fine.
Yeah, I would say it never elevates the game to a point where you're really feeling scared from the music, but it does a
Yeah.
good enough job throughout where it's not always there, but when it's there, you're like, okay, it's setting a tone, but just not enough of a tone. A lot of it's just kind of ambient noises
Yeah.
where it's kind of letting the graphics kind of speak for you. In terms of like the voice acting, well, it sounds, they are what they are, but for the voice acting, I thought it was very well done. Main character very convincing. All the other supporting characters very well done. I really enjoyed the voice of the monster. A lot of these games you don't get like the big bad that actually talks, and this guy had a real creepiness, real like almost like flirty, and it was kind of unsettling to me. It was a little humorous, but at the same time, it was a little unsettling, which I found to be like one of the high aspects of the game.
That's interesting because if that's what they were going for with Richard Gere, and I've called him Richard Gere because the monster is essentially a big moth, and Richard Gere started Mothman Prophecies. Don't at me. That's a great reference. But if that's what they wanted him to go for, I think that Troy Baker, who did the voice for it, did a great job.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it was Troy Baker. Cool.
For me, the voice acting of the monster, that's when I was like, oh, this is getting kind of dumb because I can't take it serious now.
Right.
Right. And for me, the most scary thing about horror is the plausibility of the scenario.
Okay.
So that's where it was kind of like, what he's talking about. Ooh, I'm gonna wear your skin, and
But like
what?
it was so well delivered.
It was well
I don't
delivered.
know. It was great. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was, I don't know. It sounded like him from the Powerpuff Girls to me. I don't know. I just love the voice actor.
I haven't heard that voice in a long time.
Play the medium. You're gonna get a little bit of that. I liked it.
Nice.
See, but I would have played it, but I don't have it on spots. So, but we'll move on.
I don't want to give away our judgment, but I'll say you ain't got a rush. I'll just say that.
Good. Just I'm broke. Let's move on to the story of the game. How was the story?
Jeremy, you're a smarter man than I, so I will let you take this and explain it and tell us how the story was.
So for me, the story was the second strength of the game. Now, that's not me saying it's good. That's me just saying it's a second strength. I think the strength of the game to me is the visuals. I think that's the thing where you're like, oh, okay, this is at least AAA quality on par with that, right? The story, the main character, Marianne, right? Mm-hmm. When the game first started, I've said before, I don't like scary games. I don't like being scared. Okay. And when the game first started and you have to, do what you got to do, I think it was a good tone setter. And I was like, okay, I'm a little creeped out. So I'm going to keep going. And as the game progressed, I wanted Marianne to become more interesting. She did not. When you're called by this guy that basically wants to let you understand or tell you about how you got your powers, right? Essentially, how you became a medium, how you have this gift. And so you travel to the Niwa Resort, which is somewhere in Poland. All this takes place in Poland, even though no one has a Polish accent. And you meet this character when you get there named Sadness. Now, I remember I told you with the Mothman, with Richard Gere, that I lost it completely, my immersion in the buy-in of the premise with him, but it started with Sadness. Because you can't name a character Sadness and then expect me to take the rest of the whole thing serious. So you go there, and then through that you learn the things. I don't want to spoil too much of the story. I will say in regards to how they pace it, it's paced terribly. This game takes a hop, skip, and a jump to get to the point. And essentially, the story of it takes place around a lot of different themes. Themes of belonging and family, as well as themes of exclusion, of bigotry, of different traumas that people may experience in their life, and how those traumas can manifest into affecting others intentionally or unintentionally. It's pretty much the themes of it. And so in that end, I mean, they did it. I commend them on touching on the subject. I feel like they could have did better. The motives they give for one person, they make you someone else, so you can explore the mindset or how this one person that perpetuated something terrible to your child, why they did it. And it's basically, well, they had trauma as a kid. And if you experience trauma as a kid, especially violence in the household, it can progress to becoming something violent later on in your adult life. Cool, that matches up, but I don't get the switch. So there wasn't a lot to invest in that regards. The story is, and we were trying to figure out some stuff in regards to like present, past, and past. I think you go from a flashback to a flashback within a flashback. And we were just trying to figure out some of the story elements, and it gets a little bit convoluted at times.
Yeah, I've been hearing
Jeremy?
that it. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just gonna comment on the story, but go ahead, David.
I've been hearing that this game touches on a lot of stuff, but then just kind of forgets about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't say. Yeah, I mean, I guess it does forget about it. It touches on very, very heavy subjects. Like that's all it does. It just touches on them, and it doesn't explore like how deeply that really affects you. You know, I think they were afraid to go that far, which is fine. You know, it is a video game, but yeah, it feels kind of disingenuous to even talk about it and not go further with it.
Yeah.
And back to the story and Jeremy's point, I think the very beginning premise has something to it where you're initially intrigued, but then after you actually make it to that hotel, it takes a long while to get back into the zone of like, hey, this game's supposed to be a scary game. And I will also say that the story was like the second high point for me behind the voice acting. I did like the story enough. It kept me intrigued. It kept me wanting to keep playing, but I don't think it's something that's going to stick with me years down the line or even a couple months down the line.
Okay. Did you both finish the game?
Yes.
What was your game time?
7-8 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a relatively short game.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a relatively short game, and it took forever to get to the point.
Yeah, it did.
That's the troubling thing about it, is that it's 8 hours for a story that probably could have been told in 4. It's troubling. That's one huge knock I have for it, is that, like you said, the game doesn't explore those themes well enough. It just touches on them, and then it spends 8 hours touching itself. All right. So like, you know, I can only give you so much credit for touching yourself, even in ways of which are important. So yeah, that's it for story, really. But I think we're in lockstep that was kind of the second highlight for you of the game. If you had to give that a strength, that's probably its second strength. For you, the strength is the voice acting, then the story. Me, it's the visuals, and then the story.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. We have technical category.
Yeah.
I'll go first real quick. I really didn't have any technical issues with it at all that I've noticed, so I will pass it along to Jeremy.
All right, really quick. Whenever the game went in split screen, because you had the two worlds, the regular world and the spirit world, some frame dips were happening. Both in gameplay and in rendered cutscenes, I experienced this. It's more likely because the worlds have two different asset sets, so they're rendering two different types of assets in these scenes, that's cool. That's really harnessing the power of the Xbox Series X. Guess what? It makes the frames dip. For me, that's not a big issue, but if you're someone that's really into that, then I guess that screws some stuff with you. There's also a few instances of texture pop in the split screen, and sometimes when you're loading into a level, but that happens. It wasn't anything obnoxious. So I was pretty much, for me, that's it on the technical side, really. Besides that, I think it ran fairly well. It was capped at 30 frames per second, which may be a disappointment for people who are expecting next generation 4K 60p, but I think it's fine for the game.
Was there any loading? Did you have to wait at all, or was it just pretty quick?
No, I don't think there was any loading, right?
Not a lot of loading, or at least not that we could really recognize. Like it wasn't perceivable.
Well, that's good. That's a plus. All right. Well, we have our last category. One of the most important ones is the gameplay.
Mm.
What do you guys got to say about this?
Yeah, to me, this is the most important one. And there was a point in the game where a character mentions, "Hey, this is tedious," and I 100% agree. It was very tedious to me. The game, besides the split screen, a lot of it was go into a room, try to go to a door or go to a cabinet or go somewhere, figure out that you can't proceed. In that room is an item where you then can proceed. So you search the room, you find that item, and you open it up, and you go from room to room to room like this. And to me, that's not fun. The puzzles weren't engaging at all, and they did make it where the split screen where you saw the spirit world and the real world, for the most part, that was wasted in my mind. Now, towards the very end of the game, they had a couple unique things that I wish they would have done a lot earlier on. A couple things that made you think, a couple things that were like, oh, that's neat, how you have to go from one world to the other to actually achieve this goal. But for the most part, I found it very tedious. There's a couple chase scenes which are fine. You know, they're not my favorite. Those are the ones that kind of scare me, but they weren't too bad. And then there was a couple stealth sections, and I hate stealth. And there's a couple stealth sections where the enemy is invisible, and that was just a drag. Luckily, they were very short. I got through them on my first or second try, but still, if I would have been stuck on that, that would have just made the game that much worse for me. So, gameplay was not its high point.
Yeah, I don't want to rant, but I might. Uh, I think somewhere along the line, this game at points forgot it was a game. And you, like you said, I think you had said before that like the game loop of the game is go into a room and find a thing, so you can go to another room and find a thing, and that's pretty much what you're doing the whole time. The split screen, I have a big gripe with the split screen. I've read a lot of reviews that are applauding it. And for some reason, it irritates me because the utilization of the split screen makes no sense. Because when you're doing something, you're also doing it in the real world, right? And then if you need to figure out something, oh well, I need to do it, but I need to go to a certain place in the spirit world to do it. And then if there's a certain scenario where I'm caught at, I have to do something called an out of body experience, which is where you basically make it that you can control the person just in the spirit world for a short amount of time. And then you go back and you sync up with your real world. For what? For what? All of this stuff is a gameplay mechanic designed to cater to an aesthetic. The only reason we are doing this is because they wanted the game to have a split screen. Besides that, there's no interesting utilization of gameplay in it. Now, I mentioned before that there's this mission in Titanfall 2, which if no one here has played Titanfall 2, go play it because it is an exceptional game. But there is a mission in it called Effect and Cause. And in this game, or in this mission, you are the pilot and you're going through this building to try to find these other things you need to get to the next level. It's all story elements. I don't want to get into it that much. But you're shown the past and the present. In the past, the building is nice and great. And in the present, the building is dilapidated, it's abandoned, and it's on fire. And there's different areas where in order for you to navigate areas that aren't accessible or that may have fires that are keeping you from out of it, you have to push a button, go back into the past, where you can then get to the next section you need to go to, and then go back into the present. This all happens on one screen. It's super easy to control, and it's absolutely exceptional game design. Okay. This is essentially the same thing, but none of the finesse, because we want to show you Marianne in the spirit world talking to a ghost while Marianne is also in the real world talking to no one. And why is half of my screen showing my character talking to no one? Is it, oh, because they're a ghost? No bleep. It's called the medium. I know they're talking to ghost. And if I was in the spirit world, I could just be talking to the bleeping ghost.
Yeah.
But instead, half my screen is showing me talking to a street lamp or to a bush or whatever the heck they have rendered there. You know, and I saw one review and they're like, well, this, you know, in the regular world, they use it to zoom in and show her facial expressions. Oh, because you can't do that with one screen. That's never happened before. You know, before games, it's not like movies ever did that. Like, what are we talking about here? Besides all of that, I don't like the stealth. I don't like the stealth when he's invisible. I don't like the stealth when he is visible. I don't like looking around, having to read different things and hearing my character say something about the item every time they look at the item. Okay. The gameplay was the worst part of the game to me.
Yeah.
Oof.
So
And like you brought up Titanfall 2, and like I just want to throw it back to another game. I want to throw it back to the Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 2 games. Like those have like fun puzzles. Like they're pretty simple. You're trying to find a key that unlocks a door. Same kind of thing as the medium. But they like show it to you early. And then when you find it much later in the game, you feel like, oh, I can check out this new area. The medium never has any of that. You find the item and you immediately open that door. There's no circling back or like, hey, what's this item do again? Oh, it brings me to this spot. Oh, I found the gem that now goes in the statue. All that stuff happens immediately. And there's no like payoff for finding that. So if it just doesn't do it like Resident Evil, you know, David, I know you're a huge Resident Evil fan.
I was actually, when, you know, after you guys said what you guys wanted to say, I was going to make that comparison. It sounds like Resident Evil just done poorly.
Done very poorly.
Everything's just in the same room. Like that's why. Like I like the whole, oh crap, this is the spake key.
There's no fun
gotta go back
moments. Right. Resident Evil has a ton of those. Aha. This has none.
Right. Yeah, and just to double on that, Resident Evil also has action.
Yes.
You've got to have some big cojones to make a worse Resident Evil with no action.
And another thing, like I'm not trying to compare it to Resident Evil, but Resident Evil has stakes. This game felt like it almost had no stakes throughout the entire process. It felt, you know, I told this to you, Jeremy, but it felt like they should have made it a walking simulator. It pretty much is. But they should have just made it a story-based game completely instead of putting us with these like bad puzzles and no combat.
Right. I mean, I just remember something else about the story that we don't have to get into. But yes, as far as in regards to the gameplay, it doesn't cut it. I think it's one of the weakest points. I think it is the weakest point.
For sure.
Of the game, honestly.
In a game, so
in a game, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think the gameplay gets a little bit better as you progress and you become Thomas, which is one of the other mediums in the game, because there's some other interesting things he can do that he does in regards to his playthrough. Just interesting things, being able to break or destroy some things that are all scripted, but I mean it's cool to do something else besides just look at objects. Yeah.
Well, that's all of our categories for this game, and we mentioned it earlier that it has a critic score of 76.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Do you guys think it is a 76? Do you guys think it's worth a purchase?
Go on, Jeremy.
So this game, if I understand correctly, retails for $49.99, $50. For that price, hell to the no.
Saw that coming.
It's just this game. But here's the thing. It's also on Xbox Game Pass. So is it worth it on Xbox Game Pass? Absolutely. And the reason that it is because it looks really good to me. The story is interesting. It's different. The game is different. And we don't have a lot of different. We have a lot of Battle Royale clones and a lot of FPS clones and a lot of open world clones. This is something that is different. If you're someone that misses the Silent Hills or some of the more classical REs, right? We mentioned that it gives an ode to RE in regards to the fixed camera angles, which means it's able to give you those great shots. But also like the old RE games that have fixed camera angles, the movement's kind of clunky. It's a give and take, right? So if you're someone that's seeking that, or if you're someone that just wants a different gaming experience and you have an Xbox Game Pass, I say for sure play it, give it a try. At least the first couple of hours. And you get to experience something different. The split screen, is it cutting edge? No, but it's different. There's not a lot of split screens happening. Talking to Ghost. I mean, cool. It's interesting there. There's the supporting characters in the game, Sadness, Richard Gere, Thomas, they're all interesting enough to where you would maybe want to see where their story goes. So I'd say from that angle, Xbox Game Pass, sure, give it a spinny spin.
All right, mine's going to be kind of short, I guess. For $49.99, I think it's absolutely not worth it. The gameplay does not elevate it to a point where you would want to buy this game for any amount of money. Now, for Game Pass is tough, man. If you have Game Pass, you have access to this game. All it's really costing you is time. So, is this game good enough to be downloaded on Game Pass and played? Sure, a lot of games are, though. I said Power Rangers Battle for the Grid is good enough to be played through Game Pass, which Jeremy doesn't agree, but I still think that's a decent enough game. So, if we're going to go by Game Pass, is this game worth it? Sure. I can't count it like that, though, because that's not fair. It's not worth it. Because in reality, it's a $50 game that's not worth $50.
Okay, so you went a little bit hard. You went a little bit more ham than that than I anticipated. So you're telling me at no, because you said it's not worth any. If you're telling me if this game is $20, it's worth it at $20.
I'm gonna say this: when I play a game, my favorite aspect of the game is the gameplay. Always, almost always, I'll say. And this has horrible gameplay. I did not enjoy playing it at all. I enjoyed the graphics, the sound, the story. I did not enjoy playing it. It wasn't fun. I did not have a good time going from room to room or searching out every nook. I know you did the same thing as me, Jeremy. You went to one corner of the room and you followed the wall all the way around the room until you were able to click on something. That's not fun at all. If you have to, watch the game on YouTube because playing it is not fun. That's it.
I would recommend maybe checking out on YouTube first to see if you want to play it. I would recommend doing that.
That's a good recommendation. All right, there you guys have it. It's probably not worth it.